on PBCJ and Carol Francis. As at Wednesday morning, Jamaica has 75 active COVID-19 cases under observation, including 2 moderately ill patients. There are no critically ill cases at this time. In the last 24 hours, 10 more patients have recovered and released from isolation. This increase brings the cumulative number of recoveries to 724. In the meantime, 2 new cases have been confirmed, bringing the island's record of total confirmed cases to 855. 46 cases were repatriated to their countries of origin. The newly confirmed cases consist of 2 females aged 16 and 56 years with addresses in St. Mary and St. Anne, respectively. 1 case is imported and the other is currently under investigation. Under quarantine orders at home are some 19,985 people of interest. 5 are quarantined at government facilities. The parish health departments are currently following 403 close contacts of confirmed cases. According to a recent Bill Johnson poll, the government of Jamaica has received a passing mark for its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The poll, which was commissioned by the Jamaica Observer, was conducted between July 9 to 12, 2020. 38% of respondents said the government was doing an excellent job. 36% rated administration's performance as pretty good. 16% rated the job as only fair. 7% felt the performance was poor, while 3% said they were not sure. With September fast approaching and with it the start of a new school term, the Education Ministry has started to identify additional spaces for students. The ministry is reportedly considering using a number of available spaces, including churches. We get more in this report.
With COVID-19 a recurring decimal, the new school term will be seeing the Education Ministry walking a tightrope. The challenge will be to guarantee safety for students and staff while ensuring a smooth functioning of classes. Another major challenge will be that of space. Education Minister Carl Samuda addressed this in his sectoral debate contribution in Parliament on Tuesday.
We have started to identify additional spaces for our students to allow for continued social distancing. So we have sought to utilize the existing space to the best of our ability before we run headlong into additional expenses to try to underwrite the construction of new facilities. We have been in dialogue with a number of churches to use their halls and other available spaces, and we want to thank our church leaders for responding to this national need, and they have responded admirably, and we intend to work with them. We are going to partner with the churches, all denominations, because they reflect a level of commitment devoid of any other interest but the interests of the people. And we're going to partner with them. Across the 7 regions, more than 52 churches so far have made their halls available at request. We are negotiating with others. Can you imagine that?
He said the ministry has also entered into partnership agreements with 39 private institutions so far to accommodate some students.
Nearly 30% of our school function in an undercapacity. And we can therefore operate with existing space that they have, while others have opted to use tents. So, understand me, 30% of our schools can operate to do what we have.
The minister said schools are developing their individual plans for a reopening in September, and administrators have been guided to rearrange the seating in all classrooms in keeping with the social physical distancing guidelines. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says the COVID-19 pandemic has afforded the country a chance to become even more creative in its offerings to visitors. The minister touted the island's response at an economic forum where industry experts exchanged ideas and offered suggestions on how to re-establish the region as a global destination for tourists in a post-pandemic world.
We were among the first to establish the most robust protocol, which attracted the WTTC's signal of approval with regards to safe travel. But we use technology also to add to that capability by establishing an app called JamCovid. And JamCovid had two platforms. One was for the returning Jamaicans, that is those Jamaicans who we had to repatriate, and then a second for the visitors, that was the visitjamaica.com. We created an innovation in addition to the JamCovid, but this time a geographical area that we defined as the resilient corridor for COVID and tourism. So we were able to define an area. Fortunately for us, there's a highway that runs parallel to the ocean, as it were, from Negril through to Port Antonio. And within that band, we had perhaps 85% of the touristic assets of Jamaica. So it provided for us an opportunity where we could contain, so we could track and we could manage, and we could put ourselves in a position where we could enable compliance.
On Tuesday, more discrepancies surrounding the Caribbean Maritime University, the CMU, were unearthed. This included the hiring of a Marine student to provide security services to former Education Minister Earl. Here are the details.
Corruption charges against former Caribbean Maritime University head Fritz Pinnock and fired Education Minister Earl precipitated a special audit of the entity. This was undertaken by Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis. In it, she reported that the university made payments totaling $2 million for close protection services. The matter came up for discussion at Tuesday's Public Accounts Committee meeting. However, the university's records did not indicate the basis for these payments. The Auditor General was later advised that the payments were for the provision of services to Earl on weekends. Committee member Peter Bunting said the arrangement was peculiar.
You know, as a former Minister of National Security, this is a very peculiar arrangement. I'm not aware of ever seeing a case where the expenses of the JCF officers assigned were not paid either by the JCF or the Ministry of National Security.
Close protection officers were reportedly paid between $30,000 to a high of $330,000 for their services. Dr. Grace McLean, acting permanent secretary, had indicated that these arrangements were approved by the former permanent secretary, Dean Roy Bernard, who approved payments for close protection officers and logistics support to Reed.
I was the one who indicated to the auditor that these arrangements would usually be approved by the permanent secretary. When I mentioned that statement, I genuinely meant that that is so, and I knew that the documentation was somewhere to be provided.
Bernard, however, countered her assertions.
As I indicated in my report, that I did not and could not have approved any such engagement. Mr. Chairman, my antecedent goes back to serving as a senior member of the Constabulary Force for more than 12 years. So I understand clearly how it is that a close protection security officer is assigned. We can't put in a team to provide security services for the minister. That has to come from the JCF. And especially close protection officers are specialized, trained officers who has to undergo certain vetting and so forth. So, you know, it is something that I had discussion with an officer in that regard, but the discussion was for a meeting to be held with the head of the Protective Securities branch, and for a communique to return to me indicating that they would provide this kind of service. And even, as I said in my report, even if we were to undertake that services, it would not be CMU who would be making payment for that service, because CMU can only provide funding or incur expenditure for services that are for the benefit of CMU, certainly not for the minister. So I found this this response quite alarming and concerning.
Both Reid and Pinnock and their co-accused had their bails extended when they appeared before the Kingston and St Andrew Parish Court on July 3. They were ordered to return to court on October 29. Reid, his wife Sharon, their daughter Sherelle, Pinnock and Brownstown Division Councillor Kim Brown Lawrence are facing corruption charges. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The Ministry of Justice will host its quarterly press briefing on Friday, July 31 at 10 in the morning, where Justice Minister Delroy Chuck is expected to speak on the proposed changes to the INDECOM Act and the Dog Liabilities Act. Marlon Samuels reports.
The proposed amendments to the more than century-old Dog Liability Act and Cruelty to Animals Act will put more teeth in the law governing attacks by dogs. The existing law does not allow for criminal prosecution, only civil liability. The proposed legislation would put in place the Dogs Liability of Owners Act. It places the emphasis on owners to ensure that their dogs are kept under control. If the dogs escape from the owner's yard or leash and injure someone, the owner faces the possibility of criminal liability. Proposed fines range from $500,000 to $3 million, or imprisonment from 6 months to 15 years. The Justice Ministry is also proposing an amendment of the Independent Commission of Investigations Act 2010. The amendment should strengthen INDECOM's investigative powers and capabilities. It includes, among other things, the expansion of the functions of INDECOM to allow for the sharing of information with government agencies, special coroners, and the security forces. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness recently toured completed sections of the South Coast Highway Improvement Project and got an overview of the major works being done along the thoroughfare. He was flanked by Portland members of Parliament, Darrell and Anne-Marie Vaz.
So I see you have the under the road culvert. Yeah. And this is your box culvert. Yes. The white is going to be going to come out. Realign the road. Okay. Very good. And you're moving the electric poles as well. Yes. Very good. Very good.
Major realignment along the south coast that we have in this particular area here. So as we go further down, what you will see is largely sea defense works that we will be doing along the coastline as part of the road. But this is our major realignment of the south coast that we're doing right here. We're cutting in the hillside going in, and the road will be realigned. And you see we have done a little bit down here, but this is a major section. We will relocate the GPS for now.
So this is major works, as you can see. This is done to get a wider thoroughfare, but also to preserve the road, because as you can see, the road is very near to the fall off on the other side. So we're bringing the roads more inland, and we're doing that along the coast and straightening some of the deep curves. So this will be a much easier road to traverse when it is finished. And this is part of the South Coast Road Improvement Project, a project that is long in coming, but the entire Jamaica will now see that it is well underway.
The road improvement project is part of the government thrust to open up and drive development in the eastern end of the island. Jamaican-born Linton Johnson, aged 67, has won the 2020 Pen Pinter Prize.
The Pen Pinter Prize is named for playwright Harold Pinter. It is given annually to a writer from Britain, the Republic of Ireland, or the Commonwealth, who provide a spotlight on, quote, the real truth of our lives and societies, end quote. Mr. Johnson, who is originally from Chapelton, migrated to England at the age of 11. He reportedly uses patois in his writings, which documents racism in Britain.
In the meantime, with me rhythm, with me rhyme, with me rough bass line, with me one sense of time, Goon poet have to step in line. Kabuta lazy might have got couple thousand, but Mandela for him thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. If I was a top-notch poet, like Chikaya Utamsi, Nicholas Goen, or Lana Goodison, I would write a poem so beautiful that it's simple.
In 2002, his compilation of poetry called My Revolutionary Friend was published by the Penguin Modern Classics series. He is reportedly the only black poet and second living poet to have his work published in the British series. In 2014, he was awarded the Order of Distinction for his consistent attention to the plight of the common man. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Jada Walker.
We now bring you up to date with market movements and activities from Gabriel Thompson with the Business Report.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 3,734 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 78 stocks, of which 16 advanced, 47 declined, and 15 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 19 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Barita Investments, Caribbean Cream Limited, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company, Berger Paints Jamaica, and Blue Par Group. Trading firm were 1834 Investments, Dolphin Cove Limited, and Fontana Limited. Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited was the volume leader with 5.2 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 4.1 million units and Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with 2.6 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Tuesday, July 28, ended trading at $148.18. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $111.51. The pound sterling traded for $190.74, and the euro ended trading at $177.14. Oil prices rose on Wednesday after a surprise drop in U.S. crude inventories, but demand concerns amid record increases in COVID-19 infections in some U.S. states capped gains. Brent crude futures rose 54 cents to $43.76 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 42 cents to $41.46 a barrel. And that's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The advent of the novel coronavirus has disrupted all aspects of society. In Jamaica, the education system has been one of the hardest hit. Schools have been physically closed since March. Plans are being put in place to cater not only to the academic needs of students, but also their mental health. Simone Absalom has more in this Living Healthy report.
Online sessions are the new norm for teachers and students. The Ministry of Education is working with schools to fuse online sessions with face-to-face classes, all in a bid to enforce physical distancing for the new school year. The Pan American Health Organization's regional advisor on mental health, Dr. Claudina Cayetano, says it's not just about academics and infrastructure. Mental health is a major factor in the planning process for the upcoming school year. PAHO has been working with the World Health Organization on a mental health literacy program for high school teachers.
Since the onset of COVID-19 and the premature closure of schools, many school-age students have been experiencing significant changes in their lives. So there's disruption in their sleep, we know, on their schedules, and separation from the peers, and the lack of intermittent access to internet has an impact on students. And clearly this also has an impact on the teaching personnel. So the school mental health literacy program is a program that PAHO has a virtual campus of public health platform, and this provided an excellent opportunity for us for the Collaborating Center to partner with us and the Ministry of Health. This was in Jamaica, and the Ministry of Health of Education to do a training of trainers for the educators in terms of building their skills to be able to understand what is the relevance of mental health literacy, to be able to detect and manage mental health issue early in the classroom when the time will come for the reopening. And at the same time, not only building skills for them to have, be able to detect these issues with the students, but helping them in coping with their own stressors. So the goal here is to increase help-seeking behavior. Actually, it helps the mental health literacy program and also helps to decrease stigma and early intervention. So we work very closely with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and using the PAHO virtual campus to be able to deliver this program.
In regional news, COVID-19 cases are on the rise in Guyana. There have been over 40 new cases in the past 5 days. We get more in this report from InfoHub.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. Shamdeo Prasad on Monday highlighted and recognized the work the unit has put out during the COVID-19 pandemic. He also said that persons being discharged from the isolation and ICU would have been cleared in accordance with the recent WHO guidelines which Guyana has adopted. This ensures that everyone who is discharged is assessed as free of COVID-19.
I wish to share with you the situation in the intensive care unit to date. Total number of patients seen, 57. Total numbers of deaths within the ICU, 11. Total number of COVID deaths out of the ICU but at GPHC, 5. Total number of patients transferred, 29. Total number recovered and discharged, 9. Total number of ICU to date, 4.
The ICU is where persons who have developed the most complicated form of COVID-19 and require special medical attention are placed. Meanwhile, the CMO highlighted that there is a steady increase in positive COVID-19 cases. All of the new cases reported within the last 3 days were from the hinterland.
The new cases for the weekend came from Region 7, 9 cases on Saturday. On Sunday, 4 cases from Region 9 and 6 cases from Region 7. Today, 19 cases are coming from Region 9. We continue to emphasize that there is need for more community action.
As of Monday, July 27, 2020, the number of reported cases in Regions 7 and 9 were 7-5 and 4-1 respectively. Both regions have each reported one COVID-19 related death. For InfoHub, Delicia Haynes.
Grand Bahama is now under a 2-week lockdown that began last weekend and will come to an end on August 7 at 5 in the morning. The measure was imposed by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis to hopefully flatten a rising curve of new COVID-19 cases. We get an update on the lockdown in this ZNS News report.
Well, it's been roughly 5 days since the nation's second city was under a week lockdown or 2-week lockdown. And according to Minister responsible for Grand Bahama, Senator the Honorable Kwesi Thompson, the period has been relatively quiet. Senator Thompson says while Grand Bahamans are adhering to the necessary safety protocols and taking this virus seriously, the government is striking a balance between not only reviving that island's economy, but the health concerns of all residents. Now, when it comes to concerns raised by residents about food availability on the island, Senator Thompson assured residents that there are no shortages of food there.
First of all, the government has ensured that the National Food Program, which has a branch here in Grand Bahama, which is the Grand Bahama Feeding Program, is continuing their work. To date, they have supplied some 4,500 vouchers to families that are in need here in Grand Bahama. We are continuing to do that. The grocery stores are open, and so we are continuing to provide those necessary vouchers so that families who are in need are able to be supplied. Persons are able to sign up on the website, www.feedgrandbahama.com. We've also spoken to all of the food suppliers here in Grand Bahama. They are doing well in terms of food supplies, so we should not have a shortage here in Grand Bahama, as well as we are continuing with those cargo items, and we are continuing with shipping goods into Grand Bahama.
Former Caricom ambassador to Haiti, Earl Huntley, says with the death of Owen Arthur, the region has lost one of its greatest sons. Mr. Arthur, who was Barbados' longest-serving prime minister, died on Monday. We get more in this report from the HTS News Force.
Former St. Lucia ambassador to the United Nations and Caricom's ambassador to Haiti, Earl Huntley, says with the passing of the former Barbados Prime Minister Owen Arthur, the Caribbean has lost one of its greatest sons.
He will go down as one of the greatest prime ministers of Barbados and one of the greatest leaders of Caribbean regional integration.
Owen Arthur, Barbados' longest-serving prime minister, was an avowed regionalist who, in 1998, according to his former classmate at the Caville campus of the University of the West Indies, and regionalist Earl Huntley, made a public pitch for Barbados to become a member of the OECS. But some of the OECS leaders of the day were skeptical.
It is true to say that without Owen Arthur, the Caribbean single market and economy would not have happened and would certainly not be as advanced as it is today. He demonstrated his commitment to the unity of the region very early in his career, when he proposed to the OECS that Barbados become a member with a view to establishing a confederation of the member states so that they could resume the federal ties that had been broken in the 1960s. I was at that meeting here in St. Lucia in 1998 when he addressed the OECS. And for me, also a devoted regionalist, this was great music to my ears. Unfortunately, some OECS heads could not appreciate his vision, and the initiative did not bear fruit. And the OECS, in my opinion, is the poorer for it.
Like many politicians, Owen Arthur remained on the political stage long after the curtains had come down on his role. Huntley says that Arthur had, ironically, spoken out against that very practice.
And sometime in 2004, 2005, I met him at a conference, and he said to me that he understood that Sir John Compton was attempting to return to politics at his age. At that time, Sir John was approaching 80. And Owen said to me that he didn't intend to stay in politics that long. This was his third term, and he was not going to continue. But he did continue. He contested that election and lost. He lost about 2 other elections after that, and eventually left Parliament as an independent member, leaving his party. And the lesson to me from that is that Caribbean prime ministers, Caribbean leaders need to know when to go.
Owen Arthur's alma mater, the University of the West Indies, lauded him as, quote, without a doubt, one of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century Caribbean, unquote, adding, quote, that we knew him as the quintessential regionalist, a leader in development economics. He was a humanist with a deep commitment to social justice, unquote. Owen Arthur's last public office was that of chairman of the regional airline, Liat. Stanley Lucian for the HTS News Force.
In sports, the West Indies suffered another batting collapse, which led to their heaviest ever test defeat at Old Trafford in terms of runs. They conceded the three-match series 2-1 to end their all-too-brief hold on the coveted Wisden trophy, needing to bat the entire day to force a draw with the victory target of 399, already of academic interest only. West Indies was out for 129 in their second innings, an hour before the scheduled tea interval, to slump to a 296-run loss. The Windies' batting was taken apart by outstanding Stuart Broad, who grabbed another 2 wickets to finish with 4 for 36 and match figures of 10 for 67. Broad became only the 7th bowler and 4th seamer to achieve 500 wickets in tests when he trapped opener Craig Brathwaite LBW for 19 in the morning session. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.